Hello and good morning. I am very excited to be with y'all today to talk about resilience and adaptability. So I wanted to go over a few housekeeping things and kind of introduce myself. I'm not going to keep my camera on the whole time so I can see my screen, but I just wanted you to see the face behind the voice as we go throughout today. So let's go ahead and get started. I just wanted to kind of explain who I am. So again, my name is Katie. I am a licensed professional counselor and a certified drug and alcohol counselor. And I work for Canopy Employee Assistance Program. I've been with them for 10 years. And I absolutely love the work that I do. And I'm so excited for y'all to be in attendance today. We're going to go over a lot of good information, and I hope we can get some energy around how to model some of these skills for employees. All right, so just a few housekeeping things. First of all, you can use the small white arrow inside of the red box to maximize the control panel. Also, I do ask that you not use the raise hand feature. Please, if you have a question or a comment, please type it into the questions pane. It's only me navigating today, and so it's helpful just for everybody to put it in questions rather than use some of the other features. I wanted to let you know also that we do have the PDF of all the slides today, so you'll have access to all of those. And then also under handouts, you can see that there is a webinar tech help. So if you can't hear me or having any tech difficulties, please go ahead and check that out. Hopefully that'll be helpful to you. Also, a recording of the webinar will be available on our YouTube page. You can check that out. They usually upload it pretty quickly, so you'll have access to that. Your certificate will be emailed to you within 1 week. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. I'll try to answer them as we go, but some might be best for the end. So go ahead and type those in and I'll make sure to get to them. Also, we are going to email you an evaluation after the webinar, so please make sure to take a look at that and get that filled out for me. All right, well, I think it's time to jump in. So I do have a couple poll questions to get us started today. Let's see if I get this open for you. What is resilience? Let's see, go ahead and choose your answer. And then we'll go, all of this is anonymous also, so don't worry, we won't discredit you if you get it wrong. And then we'll go through the answers. All right, most of you did get it correct. So the ability to recover from difficulties. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, you guys answered these a little bit quicker than the last one, so you must have some experience with this. So most of you do think that resiliency does help employees with productivity. That's been my experience too. Some of you just not enough experience. So it'll be interesting to start incorporating resiliency and adaptability talk into your culture and your workplace to see if you get a sense of if that's helpful, you know, where employees would rate themselves and different things. We'll go over that through our presentation too. All right, have you ever attended a training on these topics? All right. So interesting, most people have not, some people have, so that's great. I will, as we go throughout today, ask for, if there are things that have been helpful for your organization. And so if you have some, share them. If you've learned things in other trainings, we do like to learn as a whole and collaborate on this. So um, welcome to if you have or have not, and hopefully if you have, it'll just be a good kind of reminder of some of the things that will be helpful for your employees. All right, so let's go to the next one. How would you rate your personal resilience? All right, so we have most people feel like they have pretty good resilience. And then we've got some on each of the other sides, fair and excellent. So, one thing that's great about attending a webinar like this is, of course, it's going to help you in your professional life and, being able to incorporate this into your culture at your workplace, but also being able to personally, work on this so that way you can more easily you model this for your employees. So again, it's kind of twofold, and hopefully it benefits you in both ways. So let's talk about just kind of the definitions of them. So we have adaptability, being able to adjust to new conditions, modify for new purpose. One thing we'll talk about later on is just how in workplaces, innovation is so important, right? Staying on top of the game, innovating, creating, growing. And so this adaptability is such an important piece of it for employees. In therapy, I call that flexibility, whether that's behavioral flexibility, mental flexibility, but being able to allow yourself space to move and to grow is really important. Resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, or toughness. Not everybody might agree, not everybody might agree with this, but the resiliency theory does argue that it's not necessarily the adversity people face that's most important, but how you deal with it, right? So you can, for instance, have two employees, one, and they might have, well, let's just give the example of not similar adversity. So one person might be struggling with a schedule change, right? And one person might be dealing with the loss of a loved one, right? So you can consider one of those more difficult than the other or not, but what's most important is how the employee deals with it, right? And the tools that they have, the strengths that they use to overcome that versus kind of getting stuck there. So I think it's an interesting thought and one that, to think about to see how it fits for you, but it is a common belief that of this resilience theory. All right, so some aspects of resilience, we'll talk about many as we go throughout today, but here are a couple of them. Optimism, some people chose that. I think optimism is very easily, used with resilience. I don't necessarily think optimism is absolutely necessary, but I do think it's so helpful, and it's something that can be learned. Where you spend your mental efforts in that. So altruism, of course, thinking outside of yourself. Research shows over and over again that service or getting outside of your own kind of difficulty can be so helpful for people. Moral compass, right? Knowing what your values are, knowing what your morals are. Faith and spirituality can be so helpful for employees. Humor is a big one. Humor is a big one for me. I do think that can be really helpful, especially in the work that I do, right? To bring humor into really difficult experiences. Having a role model, again, having that mentor person that you look up to. Social supports. Oh, going back to role model, I just read an article recently that said, who we're around really does impact the choices we make. And And I think this is true, right? If you can create a team of resilient employees, that's going to help others be more resilient as well. Social supports. There's a great TED Talk called How to Make Stress Your Friend. And what it does is it talks about how oxytocin, which is one of the stress hormones, is actually a social hormone, and how important that is. Facing fear, right? That gumption or that determination can be really helpful. I think for me, one of the most important is meaning and purpose of life is understanding, okay, what is the meaning of this? How can I use this experience to grow and to learn? And then training, resilience can be taught, which is a great thing because that's what we're talking about today, how to teach employees to be more resilient. So why don't you guys just kind of take a look at those, see which one feels like the most important to you and your resilience. Go ahead and type it into the questions pane. Let's just see where people fall on this. Just type which one of those is most important to you. Meaning, purpose of life. We've got a couple humors on there. That's great. So about split humor and purpose of life. So yeah, I can see that those are important for people. Yeah, those are altruism. Yeah, that's a great one. What's one thing that I really encourage my clients is that when they're going through something difficult, of course, they want to acknowledge that they want to feel those things, but also spend a few minutes every day thinking outside of yourself, doing something kind for somebody else. Social support is so helpful. Awesome. Thanks for sharing kind of which one of those means the most to you. Let's talk about strengths. So we're going to go through a couple different kind of models of resilience, and this is one of them. These is just acknowledges a few here, but strengths such as gratitude, kindness, hope, bravery have been shown to act as protective factors against life's adversities, helping adapt positively, cope with difficulties such as physical and mental illness. So in therapy or in the mental health world, we talk about protective factors. So things that when life throws us, difficult experiences, the things that protect us from being able to be overcome by those things, right? So here are some of the strengths: gratitude, kindness, hope, and bravery. So I think this is a good model. And you think about in the workplace how we can, how we can talk about these things, right? Bravery. You might be really scared to pitch a sale to somebody, right? How can we work through that and incorporate some bravery into the training of how to be prepared for that meeting, right? Or I think of public speaking as another example, right? Gratitude. We're going to talk about how to incorporate gratitude into the culture of your workplace, right? So important. I used to work at a hospital and they had, I can't remember the name of it. Oh, I should have thought about that. But there was a cute name for their gratitude cards. Everybody had a stack of 5 cards, note cards, and they were encouraged over the course of a year to send 5 thank you cards. And I really love that. They provided us with the cards. They talked about it through the year. They gave us a goal. And I remember still to this day some of the cards that I received and what they said and how it made me feel. And it goes both ways. Writing them and receiving them, right, can really help resilience and adaptability. The broaden and build theory. So basically this is about positive emotions, happiness being one of them, that can help us be more explorative and adaptable in our thoughts and behaviors. We create enduring resources that help us live well. So again, going to that adaptability piece, happiness when we're not feeling down, depressed, sad, angry, whatever those things are, we're given that space to learn and to grow, right? I always think of, pigeonholing employees, right? So you have one that's always maybe somebody who gossips, right? So you have somebody who's a gossiper, kind of causes drama. We kind of pigeonhole them into that. But when you can allow them that flexibility, when they themselves can allow flexibility that I'm going to make a different decision today, right? And you have that ability, and what could all the potential benefits of that to be, right? And even just exploring that with an employee. right? If you chose this one time not to engage in gossip and to walk away from that conversation, what would be all the possible outcomes of that, right? Rather than telling them to do something, allowing them to explore that more. So I really like some of the words in this definition, in this theory. When employees have lack of resilience, you tend to see these type of emotions. Again, these things can 100%, decrease productivity. It can increase absenteeism. It can increase, using FEMLA. It can increase, all sorts of, interpersonal workplace issues. And so really being able to fight against some of these things. And it's not to say that we're not addressing them, right? So it's okay to address them, but not to focus on them. One of my favorite quotes is, "What we focus on expands." So when you are able to focus on the positive, not necessarily only the positive, right? We don't want to get into toxic positivity, but when we're able to focus on that, then there can be a lot of room for growth. All right, so let's get to some ideas. Our first round of ideas for how you, as human resources, can help employees. So first of all, I think it is important to understand and recognize the lack of resilience in employees, right? So the first thing is just understand, where are my employees? Do I feel like they have good skills? Are they adaptable? Are they flexible? Just to kind of get a read. At the end, we'll go over some questionnaires or some self-assessments that employees can take. That'd be a great way of doing that, right? Doing a survey monkey or something, to just get a read of where do managers think that their employees are, and where do employees think they are on resiliency. Just creating this conversation can be so helpful. Teach leaders and employees how to respond to difficulties, right? One of the first things is, difficulties are going to happen, right? We have to expect that there are going to be difficulties. There's going to be things that go wrong. There's going to be things that can really impact the work that we do. And so being able to teach the skills beforehand and actually expect that things are going to be hard. I think sometimes, again, we focus on the positive, which we want to do, but we also want to acknowledge that, there might be hiccups along the way, and to plan for those, right? Maybe even having a written plan. And that could be on a group basis or even an individual basis for them to have that plan. Psychological well-being of employees. Check in on that, right? Get a temperature of where people are at with that. With COVID, we've seen an increase in some of the difficulties with employees, and so being able to check in about that, acknowledge that that's happening. Career development and growth. This is so important, to be able to help employees reach their professional goals, to have those conversations, and to allow flexibility even within the workplace, for them to kind of have that sort of growth mentality and growth mindset. I think how to receive negative feedback is a really important skill in the workplace. At some point, probably everybody will receive negative feedback, and it's important for those conversations to take place about how to do that. How to take that without taking it too personally, how to take that feedback and grow from it. How to be a gracious receiver of negative feedback. Innovation and learning curve resilience. We've already talked about how workplaces have to be innovative. There's always a learning curve, right? I've worked at Canopy for 10 years, and I still have to learn and grow and innovate things, and being able to grow with the industry. And that takes some mental capacity, and being able to acknowledge that can be really helpful. Interpersonal benefits, right? We've seen so many of the problems that stem in the workplace are interpersonal related, and so being able to really understand some of the aspects of how resilience helps that, and how to allow people to make different decisions in their relationships in the workplace, to harness and to allow for more healthy and professional relationships. All right, so what I want you to do is type into the questions pane, what positives have you seen in employees who are more resilient or adaptable? It can be things we talked about or other things that you've seen in employees who have these skills. What have you seen? Oh, better attendance, right? That's like kind of the foundational of it, really important. Very hardworking. I think that is for sure something. Better retention. Yes, as an employee assistance counselor, retention is, we want to make sure employees have what they need to be able to stay where they are and give their all to their companies. They are more willing to jump in and start a project when needed, of course. They're just more proactive. Better attitude, definitely. They have more ideas and perspective brought to leadership. This is so true, isn't it? When they're not so pigeonholed into certain things, they're able to see more, be more, focused on problem solving, having ideas. Productivity remains high, definitely. Better adaptability and flexibility. Isn't this true too with so many people working remote? Is you've seen the resilient employees, right? They figure it out, they do their work even amongst, difficulties in their personal life. Ability to take on new tasks and procedures and apply new knowledge from trainings. I love that. You guys have a lot of really good ideas there. So you can see, personally how this can benefit employees. It'd be interesting to even ask employees, what positives you've seen in other employees or in yourself when you feel more resilient and strong. How do you think that comes across, right? Create these conversations around it. 100% of customers are people. 100% of employees are people. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. We deal with people on every aspect of our workplace, and so being able to understand them, what works, what doesn't work, being able to be creative and create this culture is going to be so helpful. All right, I wanted to go over a couple other models for resilience and adaptability, and you might just start thinking about how you can apply these to your workplace culture in regards to resiliency. So the ABCDE model, so you have one for each of them. Adversity, so recognizing unfavorable thought patterns. Right? So you want to just acknowledge, how are you thinking about things? What's not working? Beliefs, find the true reason behind the emotion. Right? So many emotions are secondary, like anger. How can you get at the root of those and what's really contributing to that? Consequences, recognizing the negative impact of these emotions. Right? When you have a change in schedule and it's not something you want, how is that negativity impacting the other parts of your life, right? Are you coming home grumpy? Are you treating your coworkers less respectfully because of your own emotions, right? These conversations are important. Disputation, learning to challenge them. We have to dispute maybe what our brains tell us. One of the most important lessons we can learn in life is that you don't have to believe everything your brain tells you. Kind of counterintuitive, but just because you think something doesn't make it true. Energization, which is so important. Begin choosing new and more effective courses of action. We want to get some energy around these conversations, right? How can we use them? How can we grow? Let's talk about it. Let's problem solve, right? I love that word, and I think that could be such a good motto for what you want to infuse into your workplace. This one talks about the 7 pillars of resilience. So developing optimism, leading to positive expectations, enabling a person to take positive action. So I'm going to tell you my own theory. This is not based in research, but what I found to be helpful is when you can control something, you should be optimistic. When you don't control something, you should be a realist. You shouldn't be a pessimist, but a realist, right? When I'm going to put together a project and I'm in charge and I have control over it, I want to be optimistic. I want to feel strong and feel like I have what I need to make that happen, right? When things are out of my control, waiting for supplies, for instance, right? We have supply chain issues right now. When we're waiting, we should kind of be realistic about that, again, so that we can understand that that difficult things are going to happen, and I have the skills I need to manage that. Acceptance of the situation, being able to accept what is. Focusing on acceptance makes me think of the 5 stages of grief also, like, you know, we kind of move through lots of different emotions with it, denial and anger, but really being able to just radically accept this is what's happening. Focus on potential solutions. Oh, this is such a great skill and such a great practice and exercise to do with a work group, right? What's the problem? Let's think about all the different possible solutions. Because when we're only focused on the problem, then we're not going to have space to do the problem solving. Taking responsibility for one's own life, right? Helping people to take responsibility and accountability for their own actions and decisions. Part of that is escaping from being a victim, right? That victim mentality, victim for vocabulary can be so, so caging for people. Building a support network, helping each employee identify who is your support network when things go wrong. Who is your mentor? Who's your professional mentor? Who's your personal mentor, role model? You know, what do you respect in the person you look up to? What are some of those skills that you like and that you want to have? And how can you start working on them? Planning a flexible strategy for dealing with future challenges, what we've already talked about, right? Plan for it. Have a written plan, have a written strategy, and then being able to implement that when they come. All right, so the next one, the 3 Musketeers of Resilience. Basically, this model just talks about how to understand what restores or depletes a person's energy, okay? And then it talks about how, you know, it changes over time, you have to adapt to it. But basically, I like this model because what it does is it says, let's talk about what is helpful for an employee and maybe some triggers or things that are difficult, right? So you have somebody maybe who's an introvert, okay? You have an employee who's an introvert, right? They're going to feel depleted when they go to a lot of meetings, okay? So acknowledging that, how can you restore after the fact, right? What are some things that restores that person's energy? Or are there things that we can do to work around that, right? Or somebody who's a morning person, right? So, or maybe they're not a morning person, and so they kind of ask, like, no phone calls before 10 a.m. So they need that time just to get in, to work on what they want to, and then they can kind of pick up energy throughout their day. So just acknowledging this, even just for their own self-reflection and self-understanding, to identify what those things are and how can you incorporate some solutions in the workplace to help with the depletion or the restoration of their energy. It'd be an interesting assignment too, to give employees just, write down everything you can think of. We're going to do 3 minutes of free write, everything you think of that's a trigger and that depletes, and another of everything that helps you, that makes you feel joy, that re-energizes you. Are there other models or strategies that your organization employs to improve employee resilience? Conversations, things you do in the workplace, programs that you use, wellness programs, anything like that, I'd love to hear. Go ahead and type those into the questions pane. One person typed in, we have a mantra, health, family, and work. I love that. And in that order too. I think that definitely speaks to your culture, it sounds like. Anything else? Use of mental health consultation. I think this is fabulous. And you can get it a lot of different ways, right? Through insurance, through a consultant, through your employee assistance program, whatever that looks like, having somebody to be able to talk through things, to refer employees to, can be so incredibly helpful, right? That's not your job as HR. You're not counselors, right? Don't put us out of business, but know who you can send your employees to, because it's such a big piece of it. Wellness programs with education and social activities. I love this. Canopy, we've won healthiest, top 10 healthiest small employees of Oregon a couple years in a row. We have such a great wellness program. I think it's so helpful. We've done cookbooks. We have a Zen room. We bring in somebody to do massages. It's just, I think, so helpful for all those things that you guys talked about previously, right? The mental health, the retention, the problem solving, like these things really make a difference. I love the culture that we create here too of, we meet with employees, and it's so difficult sometimes to be a therapist and to talk to people about their issues. And so they acknowledge that if you need a minute, take a minute. We have the Zen room, we have lamps, we have essential oils, we have a recliner chair, we have music, the lights are low, there's a yoga ball in there. And what you can do is just go in there and relax and take a minute for some mindfulness, take a minute to just get your head off, off of the session so that you can be in a better headspace for the next session. So you can do a lot of really fun things with very little, really. We'll talk about some more ideas in a little bit, but I just want you to start thinking, kind of get those juices flowing as far as some creative solutions to create this culture of resilience. So. All right, so let's talk about some more strategies that you can use. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and one thing that we do is when they get home from school, I always ask them what was a rose and what was a thorn, and meaning what was something good that happened and what was something that was difficult for you today. And I think it's a good way of doing that because we acknowledge, right, the difficult things, the hard things, what happened, we want to hear about it. Let's talk about that. Let me validate your sadness, right? As HR, as managers, we can acknowledge, right? We get that this is very difficult. Also, what's the rose, right? What are we going to do? What's our goals? What's our plan? What do you need to feel better, right? So really being able to focus on both of those. In therapy, I call that acknowledge and distract. You're going to acknowledge, you're going to feel, you're going to do all that. And then you're also going to drink your favorite cup of coffee, watch the sunset, play with your kids, whatever you need to do to move on from that. Address stress levels, right? I think one harmful thing is just not talking about it. And so let's address it, let's be transparent, and let's problem solve, which goes into the next one. How can we create these conversations of problem solving? Mindfulness, we're going to spend a few minutes doing that after this. I just cannot say enough about mindfulness. It's an evidence-based practice to stay present. Compartmentalize, right? How can you, when you're on your way home from work, how can you switch that mentality to really be at home and vice versa, right? Really important to allow that to be. Detachment breaks, right? Like our Zen room, encourage people to take their breaks. I used to work at a company that I can't remember, every 2 hours, so something would pop up on your screen and say, take a walk or drink some water, kind of remind you of these different skills that can be so helpful. Compassion for self and others, right? How can you incorporate some of that altruism into the workplace? How can you have days of service? One day a year, Canopy and all the employees, we've done different things, but Lately, we've been packaging food for houselessness, and so we've done that, and it's just so great to kind of find those values together and make those memories. Find meaning in the work, right? So often we kind of lose sight of that, but if you can energize employees with why you're doing the work you do, that can be so helpful for resilience. Encourage employee connections, right? However you do that, happy hour Wednesdays or whatever, being able to encourage those. Promote good habits of physical and mental health, right? Walking meetings, talking about mental health, and encouraging people to use the EAP, whatever that looks like for you. There's a lot of other ways, having seminars or classes, right? Get somebody out to come talk about mental health. Group mindfulness practices, doing that together. Offer self-care in the workplace. Wellness programs. Lunchtime exercise group or walking group or whatever that looks like. Asking for input and feedback, right? We do surveys every year where our management asks us, what would you like to see? What works? What incentives do you want? All this stuff just to get that feedback. So don't be scared to get feedback from your employees about what's going to be helpful. Walking meetings, show appreciation, right? Right now we have what are called GEMS. It stands for, oh goodness, I'm going to forget now. Employee go the extra mile. That's what it is. GEM, go extra mile. So when somebody you feel like does a good job, we send in GEMS. They read them every month. And so whatever you can do to show appreciation. A gratitude wall. Create a wall where people can just write what they're grateful for. I think that can be so helpful to employees' resilience. Encourage employees to take breaks. Supervisors, check in with your employees, right? I know we kind of do that at performance reviews, but make that a habit, a monthly habit. Reminder pop-ups. Remind employees about EAP. Create a space for mistakes, right? We're human, we're learning, we're growing. Allow people to be human. Value the whole person, right? Not just what they do at work, but who you are as a person, right? You bring your whole self to work, and how can we acknowledge that? And have a comfortable break room, somewhere people to go. We actually just set up a puzzle in ours. I love to puzzle. Somebody else brought it in, and I was so excited. So, having those little things that just says, we care. We want you to work on your whole self. All right. Let's see. Second to last poll question. Who do you think can benefit from resilience training? Kind of a silly question, but I wanted to just kind of acknowledge that it's for everybody, right? It's not for people of a certain age, not for people of a certain color or job description, or seasonal or temporary. It's really important for all employees. Oops. So one of the things that I want you to take away from this is creating a culture of resilience and adaptability. Right? This is what we want to do, is just create that culture where it's okay to talk about these things. All right, and to end, oops, goodness, this keeps going on me. Okay, last poll question, do you practice mindfulness? All right, so most of you do. I love that. And then for the people that don't, hopefully today when I walk you through one, you can see kind of what it's all about. So basically, mindfulness is about staying present. So one thing that can happen, right, our employees are maybe doing their work, but they're thinking about what they need to cook for dinner tonight, or what happened last week, or they're really worried about a future speaking gig or whatever that is, right? So they're not really present. This skill can be so helpful. I did a presentation at Adidas, and we went through a mindfulness exercise, and the manager said that when they do this in a staff meeting, they see that productivity definitely increases afterward. Innovation, creativity, problem solving, all of that increases after you practice mindfulness. So sometimes it can be hard to take the time to do it, but you'll see that it only takes a few minutes to reap the benefits of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through one right now. So what I'd like you to do is find a comfortable spot in your chair. You might find it comfortable to uncross your arms or uncross your legs. And what we'd like you to do is what we call sitting in awareness, or sitting with dignity. I'd like you to, if you feel comfortable, let your eyes gently close. You might find it comfortable to have your palms facing up. And I want you to bring all of your thoughts and attention to this present moment. This is the only moment that matters. I'd like you to pay attention to your 5 senses. Paying attention to what you hear, what you feel. You might notice what parts of your body move when you breathe. You might notice the temperature of the air when you inhale, and if it changes when you exhale. You might notice how it feels for your feet to be touching the floor. And when you notice your mind wander, don't judge yourself, but gently bring your thoughts and attention back to this present moment. This is the only moment that matters. And your breath is your anchor. Allow yourself to just continue to breathe, just focusing on this moment. And when you notice your mind wandering, that is a moment of mindfulness. Gently bring your thoughts and attention back to the room. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. How did that feel for people? You're welcome to type it into the questions pane. Let me know your thoughts. Mindfulness can be very relaxing. It was awesome. I do meditation regularly and really like it. It's peaceful, focused, right? I like those words that you guys use with that. It can be so helpful. Honestly, we did that for 2, maybe 3 minutes, right? It doesn't take long, but it can be so incredibly helpful and worth it and beneficial. So I encourage you, what I usually say is about 3 minutes every day you think to do it. So when you have that thought pop in your head, oh, I should kind of, take a minute, just do it right then, right? Don't wait, just do it. Incorporating mindfulness into the workplace is going to be incredibly beneficial for your employees. I would highly encourage you to do that. There's some great resources out there. We're actually going to go over a couple of resources in a minute. When employees are happy, they are your very best ambassadors. The ability to take misfortune and make something good come of it is a rare gift. Those who possess it are said to have resilience and courage. I wanted to include a couple books. So here are some books that might be helpful. And then I also have some apps here. Each of them kind of has a different spin. You can see gratitude, resilience, mood, headspace. There's also, I wanted to tell you, I don't think I have it on here, Netflix. If you have access to Netflix, you can go on and just type in mindfulness, and it's really cool. There's a program you can do. You can choose how many minutes you want it to be, and it will walk you through a mindfulness exercise. That could be something great that you email to your employees and ask them to do that, because most people have access to Netflix, so that could be really helpful. There are some self-assessments. Here are some of the most popular ones. And so you can also, buy one of these and then distribute it to your employees just to kind of get a read on how they feel about their resilience. All right, that's the end of the presentation today. I do hope it was helpful. I'll stay on for another few minutes. If you have questions, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, you'll be getting an email from us with your certificate, and I appreciate everybody being here today.